So I wanted to do a video about silverware. When you're out and about at yard sales, thrift stores, whatnot, when you're looking at silverware for resale, if you're doing it eBay, Etsy, Mercari, whatever, obviously for newer stuff, you have to sell it on eBay. For the older stuff, I prefer Etsy, particularly because this does take a while to sell quite often. And a lot of times what you find is one or two or five pieces at a time, and you just offer them up as individual listings as replacements for silverware. There is a website at replacements.com which allows you to find the names of patterns. It can be a little tedious sometimes, but it is worth it to find the name. You can also use Google Lens or upload pictures to like Grok or ChatGPT, and a lot of times the AI can actually identify the pattern for you. It's very useful. When you're looking at newer silverware, what you want to look for, and let's see if I can get this to go in focus here. Probably not, because my camera hates me. But this is, it says Hampton Silversmiths Stainless 1810 China. And the 1810 is what you want to look for. And sometimes it's, different blends. It's usually a 1810 or an 18.8. This is a high quality stainless steel. A magnet does not stick to it versus cheap stainless steel magnet sticks. So the 1810 or the 18.8, those are like surgical stainless steel blends or surgical quality stainless steel blends. They're very high quality stainless steel. And you also notice that they tend to be a lot heavier per piece than the usual silverware that you find at yard sales and thrift stores. And so the patterns are kind of important. You do want to identify which pattern your pieces are from when you find it. But quality sets of 1810, you can pull easily $100 even used. So if you find a complete set at a yard sale, like this drawer this is Mikasa. It's also 18, no, this one's an 18.0. Which is also same thing, not as high quality. So the 18.0 magnet will stick to. It's still a pretty high quality stainless steel though. Not as high as the 1810. So that is something to look for, is those markings on the back. They will indicate the quality of the stainless steel. And those sets do really well. Even if you don't find a complete set, you can sell a few pieces, usually for a decent amount. Knives, however, do not sell as well as forks and spoons. So just a heads up there. If you're just finding a bunch of knives and you're not sure about it, it's usually better to pass them up. One thing to look for on spoons is going to be around the edges here. Make sure they're not nicked up. They call that garbage disposal wear, from people sticking it down in the garbage disposal to clear things out. But a lot of times it's from whatever. People will get nicks and dings in there. Buyers do not like that. Always be aware of that when you're looking at spoons. If you find old silver plate or old sterling silver, I've seen a lot of people don't really know how to distinguish between the two, and you'll see a lot of people online trying to sell silver plate as silver. Now, this one's an easy one. It actually says silver plate. When you see things on there like A1, XX, triple X, quadruple, those are all plating designations. And those are the most common ones you see. There's actually quite a few. Pretty much anytime you see a letter and number combination on flatware, it is almost always an indication of silver plate. Like 3X means triple plated, quadruple means plated 4 times, etc. A1, I believe, is a quadruple plating process. Sometimes you'll see IS for international silver. That's also a plated piece always. If it is real sterling silver, it will say sterling. Of course, this doesn't want to focus well again. But you always want to look for just the word sterling. And a lot of times it will be written really teeny tiny up here on the collar, or down here around the base somewhere, or on the shank of like a knife or something. It'll say silver handle. And I want to show you knives in particular when you're dealing with them. This is obviously a comb of something, but it's the same principle. When you're dealing with silver handled knives on things, or silver handles in general, they are not solid silver. Inside is generally a resin or a plastic that is put into the shape of the outside pattern. And then they dip it or roll silver onto it to make the handle. And it's kind of a pain to get these apart. It is messy because, and sometimes it smells really bad too, depending on what kind of resin they used. But when you take the silver off and kind of rip this apart, I'm just gonna get the resin here everywhere. What you actually have is a very thin piece of silver on the outside. And this is real silver. Obviously it's scrap, it's not sellable. In order to scrap it, you're gonna need to get all that resin out. Best way on this is just kind of put it on a hard surface and hit it with a hammer, break up that resin. That's what I did to get the end off the handle. I'll do it again. You can see the resin down inside there. This is a very thin layer of silver. You find the same thing in candlesticks, where they say weighted base or something, or they'll say, usually it's weighted base or just weighted. It's the same thing. It's a thin layer of silver over typically a resin. Sometimes when you open them, they smell like pine. Sometimes it's just plastic. And so those are some things to look for when you're dealing with silver. For silver plate, a lot of this just ends up in lots that I buy. I'll buy like a whole drawer full of silver like this. It typically, unless it's a really sought after pattern, does not do very well. And there's not a lot you can do with it. What I will generally do with these, if they're in decent shape, I'll make a box of say 100 pieces and put it up for like 25 bucks on eBay. People use them for craft. You don't have to match patterns. You can try and sell them individually on Etsy, and some do okay. They're a pain to polish. They're a pain to keep clean. They generally don't do real well. Here's another example of me not being able to get something in focus. However, this one just has the number 90 on it. And now that's one that could, and you can see here where I did an acid test and it's copper underneath. So the number 90 in some countries is a 90% silver mark. And in other countries, it is a silver plate mark that means the thickness of the silver plating. So some of those can be very misleading marks as well. And you can see here, for flatware, I'll typically just acid test right on the item, especially if I'm just going to scrap it. It is kind of damaging. It will buff out if it's real silver, so you don't have to worry too much about that. It only leaves these nasty, ugly marks on the fake stuff. I can throw it on the buffing wheel and you won't even know I tested on the piece if it's real silver. So don't be afraid to do that. I am going to make another video on how to properly test a lot of things, especially with jewelry. It's very difficult to tell sometimes if something's plated or solid. Despite the markings, a lot of things are marked fraudulently and they're not what they say they are. And sometimes I do find things that are just not marked. And if you do resale for a while, you will get an eye for what real gold or real silver actually looks like. And you'll be able to identify things just by looking at them that are real gold or real silver, even if they're not marked. And that takes time, it takes experience. That's all it really comes down to. But I can try and show you some things to look for, and I'll do a video on acid testing and different pieces. I've got some here I got to clean up and get listed. But you should take a look on, say, eBay completed listings. Look at specific brands to look for. This one's Berghoff. I've got a few of these. There are a handful of brands that do a lot better than others, and those are going to be the ones you want to focus on. But if the price is right, you get to a yard sale and you find a whole drawer like this for a couple dollars and it's decent quality, you just take a chance on it. You can usually do pretty well. Rarely lose money on silverware when I buy it cheap enough. Sometimes it takes a long time to sell, though. When it comes to, let's say, knives, like kitchen knives, there's really only two brands you want to look for used that guaranteed will do well almost every time, and that is Cutco and Shun. And Cutco, C-U-T-C-O, and Shun, S-H-U-N. Those are two you should take a look at if you're not familiar with them. Cutcos are really nice because they have a very distinct handle. They're very easy to spot in a junk bin. The only things that don't do well are some of the utensils. They just don't have a lot of resale value. Things like ladles, meat forks, the big meat knives, the stuff that people don't actually use. But if you find steak knives, if you find, usable kitchen knives, they have a lifetime warranty. You can send them in if they're damaged and get them replaced or repaired. And they also hold up tremendous resale value. And the nice thing is if you do send it in to have it repaired, they'll usually just send you a new one. So what you have to sell online is a brand new piece. You do have to pay a little bit for shipping, but it's totally worth it, especially if you find them cheap. And I think that's about it for silverware. I do want to show this one. This is one of my actual favorites to find. It's not really anything special, but it's one that a lot of people have, and it's made by Echo. And it's these nice wood-handled vintage flatware pieces. And knives, forks, spoons, they all do well. I sell these individually on Etsy, usually for like $3 or $4 each. Anytime you see them in a bin for a quarter or something, pick them up. It's an easy 10x on your money. And they're always worth it. They always sell really well. They go very fast. A lot of times I'll pick up 10 or 12 pieces and sell them all within 2 or 3 days. That's one of the best selling products. Maybe it's just personally I've got, a good search ranking on those, but definitely something to look into. And that's the other thing too, is if you are going to sell singles on, let's say, Etsy or on like Mercari or eBay, the longer you do it, people will recognize you as a seller of a specific thing, and they'll come to you when they're looking for that thing. You'll get good search ranking, and eBay shops that have 100 different pieces of flatware will get a better ranking on Google when somebody searches for a specific flatware. And that's how, over time, you kind of grow your business online. So that's always a good thing to kind of pick a few things that you specialize in. Obviously, if there's money to be made in it and there's a market for it, grab anything that's profitable if you can get it at a really good price. But this is one of those things that I repeatedly come back to because it's always profitable and I can always find it super cheap. So thanks for watching.